Fantastic. Right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate that you've taken time out of your valuable schedule to join us for this meeting and this webinar hosted by DF Direct. Today we have our special guest, Jen Barnett from Expatsi. So we will get to that conversation with her and Brian in one moment. But first things first, just a small plug from DF Direct. This webinar today is brought to you by DF Direct, our low-cost, no minimum investment platform designed specifically for US expats. Whether you're just starting out or looking to lower your investment fees, DF Direct is the ideal solution. It's perfect for those who don't need full financial planning, but still want the export tools to grow their wealth. We make it seamless to fund your account or transfer your funds from your current provider with step-by-step support along the way. What sets DF Direct apart? Well, for just 0.5% per annum, no additional trading fees, you gain access to Dunhill Financial's trusted model portfolios. There are 6 different portfolios, depending on how much volatility or risk you'd like to take, and that suits every investment horizon. Moreover, ETFs used within our portfolios are compliant across both Europe and UK, so you can invest with confidence from almost anywhere. If you have any questions or you're ready to get started, please feel free to reach out to me on Ruben at df-direct.com, and I'd be more than happy to schedule a conversation or answer any questions you may have. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Jen and Brian for a fascinating discussion on Expatsi.
Thanks, Ruben. Jen, nice to see you as always. It looks much sunnier down there. Where are you calling in from?
I am in Merida, Yucatan in Mexico on the Yucatan Peninsula, and it is just another in a string of beautiful sunny days.
Oh, geez. I think I'm doing it wrong. Ruben's doing it wrong. I think you have the right way of doing things, and I think your company surrounds exactly how to do things the right way and get to the right places. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your company does?
Thanks, Brian. So, I, like a lot of people here, wanted to move abroad and always dreamt about it. And honestly, political pressure in 2016 really ramped that up for us. And so my husband and I decided that we would visit a different kind of state than the state that we lived in, and also Canada, and see if those would be good fits for us. You know, Americans always say, if I don't like who wins the election, I'm going to move to Canada. And so we visited, and the truth is, there's no real path for Americans there unless we had certain skills that we did not have. And it was incredibly expensive. And so we realized that we were going about it the wrong way. We put it on the back burner. And then during the pandemic, we decided to take it up again. You know, we're working remotely. We feel like, wow, we could be doing this from anywhere. Why are we doing this here? And so we decided to sit down and make lists of things that were important to us. What did we want the weather to be like? What kind of population did we want? What did we want to be legal or illegal? And how safe did we want it to be? How good did the infrastructure need to be? And so we made all of these lists for ourselves. And then we started matching countries up to these lists, because in the beginning, all 194 countries were on the table except Canada, I guess. And so we weren't really sure how to start. So the idea was, maybe if we could come up with a short list, then we could move into a part where we could visit countries and make a decision. Our plan had been to take our list of 10 countries, visit them over 10 years, and then potentially retire to our favorite. But the next place we visited was here, Merida. And I said, why? Wait, my gosh, we love it so much. And, we have all this huge amount of data now. We can't be the only ones who are in this boat, who are thinking about moving abroad, but not sure where to go or how to get there. And what if we turned this into a business and went ahead and moved now? It took us a couple of years to get it stable enough to where we could move abroad, but we did that in April, and that's how we got to Mexico.
I love that. And thank goodness you didn't get stuck in Canada, because supposedly Trump was just asking Trudeau to become the 51st state. You could have ended up just right back in America. Let's just hope that we don't have the problems of 100 years ago and they don't come and burn down the White House yet again.
Crazy times.
So, Jen, at what stage should somebody be preparing to move abroad? When would they actually start talking to you?
So I think that's what's interesting is that we are stage one. When we were looking, if you knew, you know what, Costa Rica is for me. I want to move to Panama. I want to go to Ghana. Well, there are people who can help you make those moves. But when you are comparing countries, and especially when the whole world is equal, it's very hard to discern where to go. So that's the main group that we help. And then once you come to me, I kind of think I'm a triage nurse. So I assess your assets, your resources, your needs, the size of your family, if you're going to be retirees or investors or skilled workers or remote workers or students, and then try to match you with a short list of countries, partially through the test, which is really meant to be a thought starter. You know, it's not perfect, but then also through consultations. And then we make you a short list. And then we try to help you move through additional stages. The second one for us is exploration. And that's where we offer trips and planning, which is, you know what, I really want to go to the UK, but I don't have a job that would get me a skilled work permit. I might go to school there, or I might go back and learn to code so that or to be a nurse, so that I'm more marketable in a country that I have my eye on. And that's kind of the second group of people who come to us. They come to us and they say, I want to move to New Zealand. And we say, well, you know, you can't, but, you know, with what you have now, but you can either raise $8 million to invest in New Zealand, or you could go through this process. And so we try to sort of shepherd people through the process. But most people who come to us, they don't even know what kind of visa they would apply for yet. And that's where Brett and I were. You know, we were completely open to, okay, we can work remote, we can start a business, or we could go back to school. Potentially we could try to work locally, but we both had soft skills at the time. Brett since trained in programming himself, but we really had soft skills, and that makes it very challenging. It's hard as a marketer to prove that I could be better to marketing in a country than a local is. And so those kind of jobs are very challenging. So, but that said, we had these different paths, and so we really had to figure out one or two paths to pursue until we could make it happen.
Love that. Out of curiosity, you said you had 10 countries on your short list. Give us the top ones that were on there that you're still going to go visit.
Oh my gosh, I had to pull it out of the file. I know that number one was Costa Rica. And we were going to go visit Costa Rica first. I had a little bit of nerves about it because I really love to cook, and I like having a huge wealth of ingredients. And I know that products can be expensive there because of import fees. So I was a little nervous, but I was excited to go and visit. But we ended up, Mexico was 10th on our list. We really didn't know that much about it. And a big draw was time zones. You know, Brett was planning to work remotely at the time when we were making the list. And so he really wanted to stay in US time zones. He'd only ever been to Cancun. I'd never been at all. And you know how it is with American media. All you ever see are those Dust Bowl saloon visuals. I knew that couldn't be what all of Mexico was like, but I mean, it's just so everywhere in American culture. And then we came across some TikToks of some guys who had moved here to Merida, and it was just so stunning. And I said, let's go there first. And then, you know, we can always go back to Costa Rica or wherever later. So Brian, I have to tell you, I have this framework, the strategy, I call it putting your purse down, for folks who want to move abroad. And just go with me on this. But so, you know, when you go to a wedding or a conference, a work event, a party, a concert, whatever, and you've got your purse and coat, and you go in and there's like music and there's lights and there's people and there's a buffet and a bar and something happening on stage and a silent auction. I don't know, all kind of activities, and it's overwhelming. You're hungry and thirsty. So you go and get your drink, and it's, wine in that plastic cup. And then you get a snack, and then you perch it on the wine, and then you're talking to somebody and you spill the food, and then you're trying to participate in an activity and you've still got your purse and coat. Like, it's just chaotic and terrible. But if you can go and find your table and put your purse down, and then you go and get your drink and bring it back, and you go and get your snack and bring it back, and you go and find your friend, and you can sit there and like, is your ex there? What's the scene? Where are the bathrooms? And talk. And then, in 20 minutes, go and get a piece of wedding cake or go to the dance floor or whatever. You have a wonderful time. I think moving abroad can be like that, especially people are kind of panicked right now. And which I understand. So but it's hard to make decisions in that panicked state. Your blood pressure's high, your heart rate is high, and you're in sort of fight or flight mode. But if you can find a place that is good enough and put your purse down, you'll probably be at a lower cost of living. You won't be at odds with everyone you see. And then we're still going to visit Costa Rica, and we're going to visit Panama. We've been to Spain and Portugal. We're going to France and Italy in the spring. I will tell you, I know I had New Zealand on my list, and that was before we'd found out how hard it was to move there. So I do remember that. But France was on my list. Germany was. And so we can still go and visit all those places. But in the meantime, I'm not angry with my neighbor. And I live in this beautiful, wonderful, vibrant place where, especially as a startup, I have so much more runway because the cost of living is lower. And I mean, look at my life. This is not a fake backdrop. This is actually my house. So it's a pleasant life. I recommend it.
I love that. Putting your purse down is something that I don't think I could get across like you can for multiple reasons, but not only because you articulate it perfectly. But I do love that because you're getting to visit all those wonderful places. I love Costa Rica. Costa Rica, your little fun fact for the day, is the only developed country that is expanding its green space instead of actually reducing it.
Nice.
One of the greenest places in the world. Who can disagree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Rwanda, a surprisingly green place. Not developed, but a surprisingly
I've never thought about it, but wonderful observation there. Okay, on that thought about being able to put your purse down. Last week was Thanksgiving. You were able to put your purse down, but yet did you still celebrate?
So I did not. I had 5 consults. It's just a different time, and people are in such need. Next year, sure. There are a number of restaurants here that serve Thanksgiving, and all the ingredients are available at Costco. You don't have a Costco. All the ingredients are available here at Costco and things like that. But this year, I decided to leave my calendar open because I thought there are probably people who can't meet any other day but this, and so we worked. We did have pork chops and mac and cheese delivered, so that was pretty festive.
That sounds pretty delicious, actually. The food in Mexico is phenomenal.
Yes.
Now, that was one thing that I'd not really thought about too much. Maybe because I've always thought the opposite way. Maybe sometimes getting into different time zones is quite nice, but having proximity to your time zone in your home country in America is something that's important. What other considerations do you think people should be considering when they're moving overseas?
So I think that the first step is to figure out on paper what's a good match. The Expatsi test is a good start for that. It's not meant, please don't take the Expatsi test and just automatically move to the first result on your list. It's meant to, especially if you're moving with a family, where you can compare notes and find out what's important to each of you, which really don't think about some of these details. So I think that first of all, it's figuring it out on paper. The second thing is figuring out what works for you with things like taxes. And that's something that we don't serve at this time. You know, we connect people with professionals because it varies so wildly, and it depends on your personal situation. Now, I will say my opinion is that in most countries, you get what you pay for with these taxes. You may pay more in taxes, but look around you at what you receive. Excellent health care that can't bankrupt you, beautiful cities. One of the amazing things to me about Europe is just every city is walkable. If it has 8,000 people, it's walkable. If it has 2.5 million people, it's walkable. And these are things in the United States that are reserved for the wealthy. And they are not reserved for the wealthy there. They're for everyone. Everyone can experience parks and boutiques and cafes and things like that, that in the US is really reserved for kind of ladies who lunch. And so I think that what you pay for with your taxes is worthwhile, but it's still important to know what those things are so that you don't make a big mistake. And then the reason why we like for people to go is because I think there is no substitute for vibes. You know, I think that you will know if a place feels like home or not. For us, Vancouver was lovely. It was a great vacation spot. We had excellent meals. We stayed in a wonderful neighborhood. Like I said, it was pricey, but it also, we felt like fish out of water. It did not feel like home. Whereas Merida felt like home immediately. There, it's very community oriented. As an example, well, a couple, it was during the pandemic that we came down for our first scouting trip, and we're from Alabama, and there was just a lot of contentiousness over masking and social distancing, even within our family. And they were not happy that we didn't come home for Christmas and things like that. And it was just very stressful. And when we came here, it was 2022. So masking was kind of a thing of the past in Alabama at that point. And 100% of people had their mask on. Even we went to an ecological preserve for flamingos. It could not be more remote. We were on a little boat, you know, the fan boat going through the water. And there was a man in a fishing boat by himself, and he had his mask on. And it was because they weren't treating it as the end all be all of disease prevention. They were treating it as we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to have my mask on because you have your mask on, and we work together.
Sign of respect. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. There were signs that said, I'll take care of you. You take care of me. We'll take care of each other. And in the city, those were printed, but in the countryside, they were hand painted signs. And so it was just this, you know, I feel like I remember times like that in the US, but it's been a really long time. And the other thing was walking through a mall. There's some really nice malls here. And we were walking through the mall, and I was wearing ridiculous shoes, and I just face planted fully on my shoes. And I was with my husband, you know, he was fully capable of helping me up and whatever, but 10 people rushed over to help me up, make sure I was okay, ask if I needed to go to the hospital, who did we need to sue at the mall, you know, and, you know, we just really appreciated the communal spirit, and it absolutely has been borne out since we lived here as well. Our neighborhood is very neighborly and friendly. We're the only Americans, but they have taken us in. We all get together to fix the cats in the neighborhood, or to fix the gutters when they're broken, or have Halloween events. And it's a nice feeling.
Oh, lovely. I love that. It is just a different cultural vibe is always going to be welcome, because it's always going to be a learning experience. And it makes you appreciate some of the pieces back home, but also makes you appreciate how many different perspectives are out there and different ways of doing things. Before we open it to everybody else's Q&As, which I'll state, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat so that we can go ahead and ask Jen, from all of her experience, how they can expand on their expat journey. What would be your
happy to answer questions?
What would be your top tips for moving abroad? What would be the things that you didn't know then that you would advise people
on? I will tell you, it's funny, and we haven't it hasn't been long enough probably, but we have loved every day. Our only regret is not doing it sooner. So my big message is, there are two things that keep you from moving abroad. There are external reasons and internal reasons. The external reasons you're just going to have to work through, it's spreadsheet time, choosing, saving up if you need to, figuring out things with your finances. We do a Q&A every week, and someone was talking about, what is it, FACTA or whatever. And I'm not a finance expert. Maybe you should come on our Q&A, but to talk about what to do with money and things like that. Like, that's the stuff that you just have to work through. It's morally neutral. It's just to-do list, checklist items, and go through them. I recommend, when people are looking for work, that they put 10 hours a week towards it. And they divide it into two paths. So if they're applying in Ireland and Canada, spend 5 hours on each. When you start to get traction in one, push the other aside and put all your time into the one where you're getting traction. Or if you're trying to get a local job or a work from anywhere job, put 5 hours towards each, and same thing. And then you can make your decision. But the internal things sometimes I think are harder to work on because you have to identify them. And that can be, stressful, emotional labor. And that's why, I'm kind of part therapist in what I do, which is fine, because I'm a big fan of it. But, things like sometimes living in the US can feel like being on the Truman Show, which is to say, danger lurks around every corner, and you don't know if, people come and they say, oh, well, if I go to this country, I'll never be able to see a doctor. And I'm like, listen, ask yourself, is that really true? The people in this country live 7 years longer than Americans. Do you think they really do that without seeing a doctor? Or if I go to this country, I'm going to be kidnapped, okay, now come on, let's get through. There are however many Americans and they all make it back. So dealing with some of those, also some things like, we have a lot of really thoughtful, conscientious people. So we work through their fears of affecting their new home in a negative way and how not to do that, and things like that. So the external ones you've got to spend time on, but those internal ones you have to spend time on too. There's a lady, I'm sure people saw it. It was in CNN a few weeks ago, and she moved to Nîmes, France, and went back to San Francisco, and she made a huge stink about it. And she's been on every news network talking about it as this example of why Americans shouldn't move abroad. And she moved from San Francisco to London to Nîmes, which is a small provincial town, literally provincial. And she was mad because they didn't make her favorite cocktail at dinner, and she didn't like the produce at the market. Like, she was just a real pill. You need to know yourself. You need to know how would you deal with not getting your drink order. If it's badly, then, and listen, I don't deal well with it either. So I'd go to places that make my drink order, I like a latte or a cafe con leche. I like a fizzy water, and I like a dry white wine. Well, let me tell you, almost the whole world is so good in those three, better in those three things than the US is. So I'm in good shape, but know yourself and your tolerance for change and small inconveniences.
Yeah, sometimes a big city might be better fitting than a small town.
Sure.
A place that's more cosmopolitan might be more fitting for somebody that doesn't want to acclimate towards those local areas. Ruben,
you have your under the Tuscan sun moment, automatically because you moved to a small town. Like don't romanticize, the experience.
Absolutely. Well, we've got this great question from Micah here. He says, how in-depth is the assistance you provided Expatsi on financial matters relating to the move? In particular, will we be discussing our existing assets and income to help determine if it's enough, depending on the country we're moving to?
Yes, we do. So one of the things that we offer is I do a brainstorm session as mentioned, 100 in the past 3 weeks. And so what I do, I'm a generalist. So if you come to me and talk about what you have and what you're looking for, then what I'll try to do is help narrow it down to 2, 3, 4 countries based on if I think that a golden visa would be a good fit for your needs, a retirement visa, a digital nomad visa, a self-employment visa, and so on. And then what I do is I pass you to experts in those countries. And I'm like, your next step is please talk to Viv Europe and Portugal and moving to Spain and Orange Homes in the Netherlands. And then, or take trips and decide which you prefer, and then you can go from there.
Beyond that, we are actually a financial advising firm, and we can actually help on any of those financial planning matters when it comes to balance sheets, when it comes to cash flows, when it comes to how Social Security works locally or beyond that. And our robo-advisor service is available in most every country around the world. So any of those American expats that might have accounts that they need to have invested abroad are going to work for them. So
how does your process, can I interview you, Brian?
Please.
Okay, how does your process work when you take someone in? Because, we have a lot of people who need help.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if somebody's looking for just asset management, which just means they have some assets, they need them to be managed, and they don't need to worry about any of the other aspects, they're going to contact Ruben. Ruben's going to make sure that they're structured in the right country and the right systems, and then he's going to set up an approved list of securities that's approved for both that country and the United States. On the other side, we have a full team that's doing financial planning. So they're going to contact us. They're going to give us some basic details, and we're going to have an hour-long consultation that we can go through all of their questions in regards to moving abroad or while they're abroad, which is essentially broken down into a few big components. What do they currently have to make sure that there's anything that we might need to correct, i.e., do you have any investments that are in a foreign bank account or a foreign investment account that might be considered a PFIC, a passive foreign investment company? Those are things that we would have to clean up. Do we have large sums of cash that's uninvested because they didn't know where to start? They had paralysis analysis. Again, a means to get an immediate victory in moving forward. Or are they just trying to explore, how do I move my IRA while I'm in the US to someplace abroad, which sometimes might even turn into, how can I do a Roth conversion? Because countries like, for instance, Belgium will recognize a Roth IRA, but they'll tax a traditional IRA, right? Not fun.
Even in Portugal, where they tend to treat IRAs as savings rather than an income because they don't have a vehicle like that.
Exactly. That's where those double taxation treaties really come into handy, and it's where we have to make sure that we're going to the right jurisdiction based on that right situation. It's not these are the best countries to move to. It's financial security is knowing that I have things in the right structure to where I'm able to optimize them and get the best usage out of them for my financial plan. So we'll have clients that they want to retire down to Spain, but they're not structured in the right way to get down to Spain.
Right. And then in Spain, it depends on which autonomous community you move to as well.
100%, a very confusing place. So essentially, we'll go through that entire process. At that point in time, we're going to build a priority list. These are the things that we need to concentrate on first, second, third, fourth, so that we don't get into paralysis analysis. And we'll start conquering them one at a time. We'll basically bring in one of our financial planners, whether it be Ann, Josh, or Isa, to really concentrate on building the financial plan and building the full proposal to go ahead and implement a process to fixing those priorities on that list. And then at that point in time would be the first point in time where the client would engage with us to become a client, and we'd start implementing those strategies to get them ready to be able to move abroad. Most all of our assets, we're wanting to keep them in the US. There's a few times that there's an exception to that, but for the most part, American citizens, we want to keep our assets in America because it's going to actually reduce the burden of any form of negative taxation based on our citizens-based taxation. And in certain circumstances, we actually benefit by being an American abroad. For instance, France. France is an unbelievable place. If you watch some of our past videos, you'll see our friend Jonathan Hidida talking about it being the bee's knees of double taxation treaties. There's only so many accountants that you get that refer to double taxation treaties as the bee's knees. Jonathan is definitely that guy.
I love that. I'm sure it's the cat's pajamas.
Exactly. If he gets a second country on his list of countries that he supports, I'm guarantee you that's going to be the slogan he takes.
Well, that's fascinating. And so that is a place where I really have to pass people off to experts. I can tell if they can, swing it essentially. But when people get into the nitty gritty, like I know some things there is, 7% tax on retirement income in Italy. I know that there's Beckham's law in Spain that can protect people from the wealth tax one time or whatever. I know enough to be dangerous when it comes to finances, but I will assure you, I was definitely a poet and not a quant in school. So, so I'm always looking for help with that. And, people they want to find a place where they want to be, but obviously they don't want to take some huge hit for no reason because they just moved to the wrong place. And of course, everyone is confused about the NHR and it ended and what was it? And it's fascinating to me that the NHR in Portugal, by the way, if people don't know, it's non-habitual resident tax scheme. And that people are learning about it after it's over. And so it is a big deal.
Absolutely. I think there's those breakdowns of there's the people that are using moving abroad as a mechanism to lever up and get better opportunities than they had back home, and there's those that are doing it because they have the financial security to do so. And when we break it down in those two different positions, that's where you can start to actually look at which countries are going to be the most beneficial for those types of situations. You might be trying to try to play with different tax regimes to do things in better ways. And those are the important things to know, to where all of a sudden talking to an expert like yourself, you're able to hone in on which places should I exclude and which ones should I include, and therefore who should I be talking to thereafter.
Right. That's interesting. When we first launched the test, we started the test in 2022, right when we got back from Merida. And we didn't really know about visas at that time. We were still, and so the first version of the test was really more of an affinity test. And so everybody got Switzerland. Everybody got Switzerland on it because if they went through and they said, oh, you know what, I'd be willing to learn Italian, German, or French. Well, Switzerland got 3 points, like right out of the gate. And then of course, English, enough people speak English, they got a point for English. And then they have high degree of safety, high degree of healthcare, high degree of infrastructure, women's rights, gay rights, all these things that are really important to our followers. And so I was like, okay, I know that they can't all move to Switzerland. So we've got to build in some more pieces to the test. And in 2023, at the beginning of the year, we completely retooled it and learned as much as we could about visas and essentially cost of living. So the test now divides you based on your budget and then also the visa you're trying to pursue. But I will tell you, a huge number of people, like I said, really don't know what visa they want to pursue yet because that's a challenging piece of it. Right now, we say that the first stage is ideation, which is, I'd like to move abroad, or I'm tired of this. And honestly, I don't think everyone is running from the US. I think it's just that the cost of benefit, the CBA of staying in the US has changed. Other countries have risen, the US has fallen. And so there's going to be a natural progression of people leaving for greener pastures.
You know, I had a different theory on that, Jen.
Tell me.
And this has been after working in this space for 15 years. And every year, doesn't matter if it's democratically led or Republican led in the United States, the interest in moving abroad has increased. And my theory on it has been quite simple. The baby boom generation has definitely retired. And more and more of them are retiring by the day. And once you become a retiree or a pre-retiree, your kids are out of the house and you don't have the job linking you back to the States. When you don't have those two aspects, moving abroad becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. Reasonable.
And that is the biggest demographic we have in the US. So
they're less attached to their families than they used to be. You know, millennial parents complain about this a lot, which is grandparents are less involved in their kids' lives, or they don't feel like that village feeling, and they're perfectly content to pick up. However, I will tell you, my audience is Gen X. Now it spans mostly millennial to boomer.
What Jen's telling everybody on this call is that I'm older than her.
I doubt it. But I'm telling you, younger people are considering this move, and for different reasons.
Absolutely.
And I do think that there is I really do think there's going to be a big shift. And I have a mission for it. I want to move 1 million people. That's my goal. I want to move 1 million people out of the US, because I think it will have an economic impact that will get our message across better than the activism I've done in the past, which is not, you know, to the degree that I have. I think it will have an impact if I move 1 million people and their spending power out of the US, even if they keep their savings there. I really do. So what were we talking about?
The mobility of people. I don't know if you saw this weekend's Financial Times, front page of the weekend Financial Times. America is
Financial Times.
The most mobile America has ever been, i.e. people are living further and further from home, even in the country. So it speaks to exactly what you're saying. We don't have that village mentality in the United States to where it's grandkids, kids, and parents living in the same neighborhood. They're not even living in the same state. So all of a sudden, people get to different ages. They don't feel like they're part of that community. And we definitely have that over here in Europe. That's for sure. You definitely have that right there in Mexico.
For sure. And one of the things we talk about when I talk to multi-generational families where they all want to leave is they're trying to find this perfect country where grandma and grandpa can retire, mom and dad can work locally, and the kids can go to school. And I'm like, listen, that Ireland is the only exception, because usually if you're working locally, most of them need to work in English. And I'm like, Ireland is really your only option for that. But Europe is small. Like you can retire to Spain and they can work in the UK, and it's not, people famously go between Spain and the UK all the time. It's not like you're so far away, and the kids can go to school for free in Germany, and you're all just train rides or those short little Ryanair flights away from each other. So it's sort of like being in different states.
Very, very true. Ruben, do we have any questions left from our audience?
I think we're all covered at the moment.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you two last questions, Jen, if you don't mind. The first one is the question I always have to ask every expat. What is the food that you miss the most from back in the States?
Okay, so first of all, I have to tell you a funny story. You know, there's a subreddit for expats, and every so often someone will come in and say, Americans who've moved abroad, what is the thing you miss the most? And no lie, half the answers every time are Mexican food.
Very true.
And so I feel like I've cracked the code, right? Because I'm like, I came to the source. All the food is Mexican food. So it's not
tacos for breakfast.
That's right.
Breakfast, you know, you can't miss it.
No, exactly. But the Yucatecan food is a little bit different. Like their flavor palette is different. They really like sour because a lot of things are made, these sour oranges and things like that. So like a good hamburger, we had to come home. We moved our residency to South Dakota. Brian, I know you know about things like that. And so we moved our domicile to South Dakota. By the way, for the audience, all you have to do is spend one night there every 5 years, and you can become a South Dakota resident. There's no income tax, there's no corporate income tax, and so on. But also we moved our vote there, which was meaningful to us. And then it's easier to get car tags and things. But we had 5 guys. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. So I will say that like the way that there's something about the way they make burgers here, they just really love a super heavy-handed charcoal flavor that's like beyond what I'm used to. And so like just a normal American, I know it's so basic, but that's probably it.
But it's the more time you spend abroad, all of a sudden, when you get back to America, you always crave that one thing.
Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And,
Now, if
and
I
then you
just
have it and you think it's the most repugnant thing ever most of the
no,
time.
no, it's perfectly delicious. Other thing is soul food. So I'm from Alabama, and just like a southern veggie plate, but like peach cobbler is a vegetable, and a big piece of cornbread and stuff like that. Like and I can make that, but the produce here, there aren't little field peas and things like that like we have at home. There's a group called Merida Food Hunt, and I swear to God, the whole group is just Canadians looking for potatoes. They're obsessed. They're obsessed. Every single time that there are russet potatoes at Costco, there's like a photo spread. Like, get it together, guys. Eat something else.
Come on, if you're talking about Ireland, if you're talking about United Kingdom, Poland, Germany, these are potato countries. So
yeah, they need their poutine. They can't do that. But also, where we are, there are a lot of there's Fridays and Chili's and Domino's Pizza and all that sort of thing.
Getting the good life of the good American classics.
Exactly.
Okay, Jen, last question, then we'll let you go for the day. How do people get in touch with you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I have a website. It's expatsi.com. I'll type it in the chat because it's funny to spell. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Blue Sky, LinkedIn. And my handle is always either Expatsi or Expatsi Test, depending on the channel. And then I have an email. It's jen@expatsi.com.
Wait, if you have a TikTok, does that mean there's Expatsi dances out there?
False.
Coming soon.
Don't put that out.
Coming
That's
soon to
terrifying.
Expatsi. Jen, I love the service that you're offering. I really am excited to see you get to your million over the course of time. I know you do a brilliant job over there, and I thank you so much for joining us today.
Brian, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. I am going to be in touch to get you to do one for us because I think this is really valuable info.
We look forward to it. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and thanks for joining us. Thank you again, Jen, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Take care.
Bye-bye now.